In the last video, we stopped at the point where we added and tested our application dependencies. We added Angular material, Angular flex layout, Angular content slider, which is also known as NGO carousel, and we also went ahead and added Angular Wowjs library, also known as NGX Wow. In this video, we are going to go ahead and start our application layout. To do that, we start with our application scaffolding. First thing I did was to create a folder of our application CSS theme under the assets folder. So here we have a folder named styles, which is going to hold the CSS of our application. Within this folder, this styles folder, I generated our application theme, and here in the themes I have a theme known as theme blue, and here I generated our material theme. So here, to create or to define colors for your own theme, you can go to this website. Let me just open that. If you go to this website, you can always generate the colors for your own material theme. So here, if I go ahead and select this, if I choose that, and if I want to kind of like save this or copy this, let me click that, and you see here it shows you the different frameworks in which you can generate your theme colors. For example, we have here Angular JS material, we have Angular JS2 material 2. This is what we want. We want the Angular material 2 theme colors. So you can always just go ahead and generate your own theme colors from this web application. So with that in mind, so here I defined our application theme. I added some CSS classes, and the name of our theme is going to be template blue. And these are just classes for our application theme. And with that, I also went ahead and added some Vue CSS classes. I also had a folder for our main application CSS, such as scaffolding CSS, and I also have another file for our typography.css, and I also have a file for variables. So here is our application theme, and here I've created, or this is where I save all of our application CSS files. Another folder within this assets folder that I added is the images folder. And in the images folder, we have a folder for our application slides. This is going to be our application content slider. And I also have another folder here. This is for our application testimonial images. Then I defined the logo. What I did next was to generate our application shed module. And here in the application shed module, we have a folder for animations, and we have a folder for components. We also have a folder for directives, services, and all of these are our application shared components. And to continue, the next thing I did was to start with our application layout. If we look at our sample application, we needed a header, and we also needed an application footer. What I did was I generated our application header and footer here in the components folder. So here in our application header, we have an HTML file, and here we just have a couple of HTML, And here we define our header with some CSS classes. If you look carefully, we have a class here, Angular NG class, that it's going to do some, we had our navigation where if you scroll down, then the header is going to change to a fixed template. So we defined that here with Angular NG class. And here also in the HTML, I added two logos because we are going to have two different templates. So we have a navigation header where we needed a logo, which is going to be with some sort of a white logo, and another one we needed a logo that is just black or any other color. So I defined here with two different application logos. So the first one is, if we are not in a fixed header situation, then we should show the logo with a white logo. And if we are in the fixed header setup, then we should go ahead and show the full black logo. And that was mainly it in this application. And before we continue next, here where we have our application navigation links, and since it's just a one template or a one-page application where we have to scroll to the different sections of our application. So here I defined a directive, and here it's here in the directives folder. Scroll to directive. Here we defined where our application or where we should be in our template when we click on a navigation link. You can just take a look at the directive. So here in the header template, we want to scroll to our about section when we hit the about us, and we also want to go to the services section when we hit the scroll to link. So that was it for this header.component HTML. I'm going to save that, and next in the header.component.ts file, the first thing we did was to define a public variable known as isFixedHeader. Then we have here, what we are going to do next is to add a host listener. Yeah, in here we added a host listener to our application in case of our Windows scroll. So when we scroll on our page, application web page, we want to change the isFixedHeader variable to true if our offset is greater than 10, and otherwise we set the isFixedHeader to false. And that was mainly it for this. Okay, so what we did next was this is an application where we want to be able to also have a mobile responsive navigation menu. And to do that, here I add a host binding CSS class, which is here in the header.component.html. Here we have a class known as menu toggle, and we want this to only be available when we are on mobile devices. So how do we do that? We set that up here in our header.css or SCSS file. So in the views we had a header.scss file. So here we defined the menu toggle CSS class. It's display none on any other device, but when we are on devices which are with maximum width of 991 pixels, we wanted to display our menu toggle as black. And with that done here, since we have this to only show on our mobile or smaller devices, what we need to do next is to toggle this class so it should show our menu, and also to close it on toggle. So here I defined a toggle method where if you click on this toggle button, it's going to toggle it, either set it to opened or sets it to close. We can go ahead and save that, and okay, with that, what I did next was to generate another component, which is going to be our main app component view, which is also known as app home. Within this app home folder, I defined a module. So our application is going to serve with a lazy loaded module. So here I have a module known as app.home module, and here within this I also have a component known as our application home component. So now that we have our header defined and we also have our footer, which I suppose is working correctly, I went ahead here and added our application header and our application footer. So let's add that here. That's our application footer, and let's also go ahead at the top and add our application header. With that, we can go ahead and save this and check our application in the browser. Okay, so as you can see, our application now has a template header and a template footer. So here, when you scroll with an offset of 10, our menu translates to a fixed header, and when you also go to the footer here, to go back to the top of our application, if you hit the scroll to top, it takes you to the top of our application. This is using the scroll to directive I showed you earlier. Okay, so with that, our application layout has started coming out, and let's check to see our menu or our navigation menu in smaller devices. Okay, here as you can see, when we go to or when we save our application in smaller devices, it transitions to a responsive here with a toggle menu. So we can toggle this and we can see our navigation menu. So that was it, and I will hope to see you guys in the next video. In the next video, we'll go ahead and just add our content slider here. So we are going to change this to images and to display images, and from there we also add our different sections of our application, the services, testimonial, contact, and whatnot. So that is it for this video.